But why don't we kick over to the big hot button topic of the week, the massive story. I'm going to read the emails we got first.
Okay.
We can get into it. There's a lot of bits and pieces to it. There's a lot. It seems like there's a lot to the news that I put in here, but it's really just one story that has a bunch of parts to it.
Kind of rolled out over a couple.
And it all involves Xbox, who have stepped on another rake. They've stepped on a lot of rakes this year.
Yeah,
they have stepped on a a lot of rakes this year. Yeah. Have they not though? Like since the beginning of the year, it's ridiculous.
I would even go back, to last year too, where
a little bit. So first email we have comes from Henry from White Oak, Ohio. Hey dudes, I wanted to write in regarding all this Microsoft bullshit this past week. Well, it does really seem like an oh shit, here we go again moment. I don't think people here are taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture. It really seems like people above Phil and company are stepping in and starting to steer the ship. I mean, think about it. We kind of now know that Game Pass has become stagnant. Xbox console sales are in the toilet in comparison to PS5. And while they have a pretty good lineup for 2024 and the potential to have some heavy hitters in 2025 like Fable, let's be honest, everything with them has been just a non-starter this generation. Never forget they launched this console without a single exclusive title only for this console, which is just baffling. Next email on this we have comes from Steve from Fall River, Wisconsin. Hey, gents, what do you all think about the Microsoft business? It seems insane to close a studio like Tango, especially being their only Japanese studio. Is there any reason in having faith in this brand anymore? They've repeatedly promised games, and then they haven't delivered on that promise. And now with them seemingly switching strategies to being multi-platform, I just can't understand why anyone would buy an Xbox system anymore. And our final email comes from Dennis from Charleston, West Virginia. Hey, dudes, love the podcast. I had to write in on this Xbox nonsense. What is happening? It really seems like top-level execs want to gut the brand and make it something else. Do you think they are the next Sega? Ooh. So
it's a lot. Like
there's a lot. But we'll go ahead. We'll go through. So basically, what happened is I believe it was this past Tuesday. They came out and they announced that they are closing 4 studios. 2 of them, or no, not this past Tuesday, the Tuesday before.
Yeah.
A couple of them make sense. One of them does not.
Which one do you think doesn't make sense?
Tango.
See, Tango to me. So let's talk about the other ones first. So obviously, like Arcane, Redfall, Colossal Bomb. Somebody had to eat the bullet. It was going to be them.
It did, but at the same time, you can go back to his comment from last year where Phil Spencer said, "We're not going to shut it down." There's
also the thing where we're not going to touch it. We're going to let them make their thing. Like we didn't, and then it came out. Well, they didn't help us make anything, and the whole thing was just a shit show from the get go. But when that tanked and it imploded, someone had to eat it, and it was going to be them because it's the easiest answer is to just be like, "Oh well, they made a bad game." And we need to close some stuff.
The important thing to note, because I do see some people get it confused out there too, it's Arcane Austin, not Arcane as a whole.
No.
So it's that one studio. Part of Arcane is closing.
Because Arcane is still making the Blade game.
Yes.
And some other stuff, I'm sure, too. I think
one part of Arcane is making Blade, and I think the rumor is that the other one is working on something to do with Dishonored.
That's what I had heard, too. There was another Dishonored thing coming, which... Dishonored obviously is the franchise that made
that studio.
So I could see why they would let them try again. It's odd to me that they're not going to bother with Prey, just because I feel like that did well.
Prey was the game that Arcane Austin made before Redfall,
right?
Which was very well received. It did not sell very well, but it was very critically well received. I played it. I enjoyed it. It's not the same as the original Prey.
No.
It was a very good game.
And it wasn't supposed to be Prey. We've talked about that too.
It was its own thing, but it was really good.
But so Arcane is definitely one that makes sense to me that it was gone. What was the other one?
The other 2, one of them was a mobile studio, like Alpha Dog Games.
And then Roundhouse Games.
Yeah. Roundhouse Games wasn't shutting. They're going to be a Call of Duty support studio.
Right, and that's the thing is like some of this stuff is like they're not necessarily like firing everyone involved with this stuff. Some of these people are getting moved over and absorbed into other things. The Tango one, I get why a lot of people think it's weird is because, Hi-Fi Rush, Critical Darling, supposedly did pretty well. They just put it on PlayStation.
I mean, they came out.
Original.
That Aaron Greenberg came out and said that they were pleased with how well it sold.
Loved it. But then the first thing I said to you when we heard about it, I said, he left. They don't.
Oh, Shinji.
Yeah. Mikami left. And he left pretty much like right after that thing got released, didn't he?
He left in January of this year.
Right. So like not far after it came out.
No.
And basically he said, I'm out. I'm going to go do something else again.
He made a new studio.
Right. See, but you can't tell me that Microsoft bought this studio just because they wanted him.
I think that's part of it.
And then with him
gone,
he
left.
And even though Hi-Fi Rush did well, you can't tell me it sold anywhere near the amount they would want it to sell,
Evil Within
or anything like that. So when it comes down to who else can we get rid of, well, he's gone. I don't know what they're going to make next. We'll get rid of it. So that one's not strange to me. It's shitty to me, but it's not strange.
Of the four, it seems like the shittiest one because not only does it puts that on the other smaller teams. Like right now,
you can make this game
Tuesday
that's critically received,
and it doesn't matter.
Matter.
And here's the thing: all eyes right now are on Ninja Theory because Hellblade 2 comes out on Tuesday. That is a small team. If that game, it doesn't matter. If that game's critically does well on Game Pass, that could be shut down
easily.
So,
and I was reading a lot of stuff where like there's not a lot of hype going around for that game. That game comes out.
There's not a lot of hype for that game, but part of my issue with the hype train on that game is Microsoft is not doing a good job promoting it.
No,
it just seems like they're sending it out to die.
Right.
Which is really strange because that was the game they showed when they announced this console.
Yes.
The Series X. That was the first thing that they showed. Like, hey, look at Hellblade. It really seems like we're turning that into a big new franchise. And then you find out, no, it's just another 8 to 10 hour linear game.
And
like
the first one did so well. It won awards. People loved it. They loved it. You would think they would really be like, especially this year when what else is coming?
It's also another one of those games that unfortunately, I don't think I put in the news here, but it unfortunately has to be put in that 30 frame argument because it's coming out and it's not 60 frames on the consoles.
Don't worry. It'll get a 60 frame patch after it's announced. It's
a year from now. Yeah.
Because
I'm going to try it on PC. I'm going to try it on PC. So I will talk about it the next time we record, but I wasn't a huge fan of the original one. And part of it was it's a very cool game. It's very well made. The audio, especially, it's a game you need to play with headphones because of how the audio works. But it doesn't go far enough into its combat. The combat, for me, was too simplistic.
It seemed like this one was going to do.
It seems like that,
it's gonna
but I don't know now.
Of a game.
It seemed like that, but then when they came out and said, no, it's still an 8 to 10 hour game, I think a lot of people were really disappointed by that.
But everything they've shown on it makes it look like weird as hell, like interesting. Like
the first one was weird as hell.
It's a weird game. And I think there's room for that. People like that kind of stuff. But
there is.
But did you see the Redfall stuff from today? Confirmed it is going to
and that was mode? I didn't put it in here because I figured we would talk about it in here. But so they were working on a patch to give an offline mode for that game that they promised. Then they, when this studio closure came out, they said, no, we're going to cut all the support on that.
No DLC for people who paid for DLC.
They're probably they're giving the money back to those people. I saw that, which is they kind of have to, but I also question how many people really bought that.
There can't be that many.
Not enough that they were going to take a hit.
Not that many people bought a digital deluxe edition of a game available on Game Pass.
Exactly.
It's not real.
But they are going to make that offline mode available, which I think is a kind of a good faith thing. At least
it is a. We told you we would give you this, and also, even though the studio doesn't exist, it keeps the game alive. Yeah, which is important for other reasons.
I said before, the little bit that I played of the game, I don't think it's a bad game.
Right
after the patch that they put out, it's a very unique and interesting game. It's not perfect by any means, but I think there was a lot of originality to it. So, that I would like to go back and play more of it at some point, but. So obviously the studio shutters have just made it worse. I'd argue now the faith in this brand is lower than it was a decade ago. with
we're
the Xbox One reveal. We're lower.
We're lower.
We're lower than that because with this, you also have, I mean, there's other stuff and we'll go through it. There's rumblings of a Game Pass price hike. Then there was scuttle of, well, are we going to put Call of Duty on Game Pass this year? Or are we not? Now it's come out today. It seems pretty much confirmed it will be on Game Pass, which I don't know if that's the smartest move for Microsoft.
I was going to ask you, like, do you really think like that?
I don't think it's a smart move.
I think it's a bad idea. And I think
it's a bad idea.
I get that, like, putting it on there is going to bump Game Pass numbers. I get that.
Right.
It's better for I get that it's better for the consumer if it's just a Game Pass game.
It is.
But I think for a title that essentially a title you just paid $68 billion for, that's kind of dumb, right? I guess they're hoping that we'll just make it back in COD bucks or COD
microtransactions,
or COD coins or COD euros.
It's not. Well, the other thing is like you're not going to get any kind of map packs or anything. You're going to have to buy. They're not going to give those. To Game
and
Pass
you're also.
people.
And the other thing about Call of Duty is, remember, they don't give a shit about the single player game anymore. That's not what
they don't. I'll be interested to see if they do one this year.
They'll release that, but it's Warzone. You're paying. You want Warzone, and they want money from Warzone, and we'll make content for Warzone. Like that's all it is. And I feel like they could have gotten away with still charging for it, and people know like, well, that's dumb, and it wouldn't matter. People still would have bought it. Remember, they get the revenue from the PlayStation copies that sell now. So
I think Call of Duty should have been their, break glass in emergency situation.
3 months
and they
later.
should have waited a year or two.
Hey, Christmas Day.
Yeah, okay.
Everybody's getting, you get an Xbox and Christmas. Call of Duty's on here today.
Yeah.
The thing that we know now is that with some releases, because the numbers came out that for Starfield, it only moved the needle 3% for new subscribers to Game Pass.
Right.
What is Call of Duty on Game Pass going to move that to 5%? Like, I don't think it's going to be big enough because the other argument here is, and especially I'll put it in here now, even though I think it's a news article for later, but we just learned in this was it the last month or the last quarter, PlayStation 5 has outsold the Xbox Series X and Series S
like 5-1.
Yeah. Which is, it's just an embarrassing.
Well, that's the other thing about
point.
Like COD moving Game Pass. Does it matter? Because it's still a PlayStation. It's on PlayStation still.
It's been on PlayStation for the last decade because they had the marketing rights for the last decade.
Right.
And you have not only last generation, which was a mostly PlayStation generation, but this generation is a mostly PlayStation generation.
Most of the COD revenue, regardless if you charge for it on Xbox, is going to come from Sony. So is there a real detriment to actually putting it on Game Pass? Probably not, because I don't think you're expecting that much money.
You know that they had the counters sitting there counting all of this to figure it out.
Right.
But I think what you're seeing, the bigger part of this here is I do think that it is the kind of situation where the head CEO, Satya Nadella, and I forget the lady's name because there's somebody else that's higher up too. I think they're coming down hard on this division, the Xbox division, and mandating some of this stuff. Like, we need to start making money here.
I feel like they're making it, well, because remember, there's that thing going around with, well, it's not called Xbox internally anymore.
Yeah, internally. So internally, and I've seen this rumor a lot. Nothing's been confirmed, but they're not going to confirm that until they confirm it at a press conference. But internally, they're referring to it now as Microsoft Gaming.
Right.
Instead of Xbox, which, then you start to ask that question like, well, you have Sarah Bond out here talking about they're still making, the next most powerful system. But like, is that really going to matter?
No. I think
when your competition is selling 5-1.
No, I think honestly, I don't even think that the next powerful console is necessarily the right move. I think if they were to get into this rumored handheld stuff that keeps floating around, I think that's a good move instead.
I think it's a smart move for them because Game Pass would really it really plays into the handheld setting with all the indie games and stuff.
A native Game Pass handheld, which can
download games to it, has storage.
Or it could stream from your Xbox in your house like a Portal does. Basically, a Portal that also downloads games.
That has storage you can download
should
games.
Do right.
It should.
But but so it's like a mix of a Portal and a Steam Deck. I think is the ideal thing for them to do. And then you wouldn't call it an Xbox; it would be a Microsoft
gaming platform.
Right? You know,
they'll have some name.
They'll make a name for it, but it'll be Microsoft Gaming.
I think when we do get to a reveal of whatever it is, I think that is the plan. I think you're going to have whatever powerful box that they have, and then instead of a Series S, you're going to have whatever that handheld thing is.
That'd be a better instead of having two different consoles, have a console and a handheld, but the handheld,
because it does also seem like that's been a real wrench this generation is the Series S because of how limited it is.
How about the console is powerful, but it also has a dock on the top, so you set your handheld on it.
There you go.
Boom.
There you go. Well, then here comes the next part of the Call of Duty on Game Pass argument is then, do they raise the price of Game Pass?
What is it now? 17?
It is. It's either 16 or 17.99.
So if we're not going to sell Call of Duty for 70, we're essentially selling it. I mean,
you can still buy it on Xbox, but who's going to do that?
But if we're not going to do that, then essentially we're selling it for 17, because you have to, even if you're an existing subscriber, you're paying again. It's $17 that we're getting for people who play Call of Duty. I don't know if Game Pass can sustain another increase again. Like, this is, I get why.
I don't think you can push it above 20.
20 is the cap. I think once you pass 20, you're talking about how many games am I really playing a month on Game Pass? Is it like, am I going to pay $20 to play Call of Duty for 4 months, or am I going to buy it once for $70?
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of people will draw a line. Because of the thing that I did, I'm grandfathered until October of 25, so I still got time before I have to worry about it. But it does become that question, like when that time comes up, a year and a half from now, how much is the service going to cost?
How many Game Pass games am I actually playing?
Exactly.
Because if it's only one game a month, then it makes more sense to buy it.
It does.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. They have, I don't know, they have such a odd future they're carving out, and a lot of it is just, and again, I can't argue, like, there has been mismanagement and terrible,
there's been a lot,
just terrible messaging.
There has been,
because they're never clear on anything with any of this stuff.
And let's be real, you and I have been Phil Spencer defenders for a long time.
We have,
for basically since before he even took over. Like, when he finally started to show up and be like, I'm in charge of like Xbox games, and I'm going to do this, that, and the other.
He made a lot of good decisions.
He made a lot of good. He made a lot of good faith efforts.
Got rid of the Kinect.
Was trying to do certain things that all seemed positive, but I haven't seen anything come of it in a long time.
I haven't seen anything come of his decisions since Game Pass, being the thing,
and Game Pass,
like, he's done a lot of trips to Japan. He's talked to different studios. We've acquired all these studios because I mean, whether you want to say it or not, he is the guy that went out and helped acquire all these studios. Not just Activision and Blizzard and Bethesda, but
people made fun of him for
before
his
that.
Leaked emails of, I want to buy Nintendo. It's like, because everybody wants to buy Nintendo. Like,
I'm sure there's 100 of those at Sony as well.
Yeah, it's not; those aren't secrets.
Those aren't no.
But it's like the email. One of the things that kind of triggered me when reading those emails is, Xbox has always promised games.
Mm-hmm.
This summer is going to be, we have the games, and then they show the sizzle reel. I don't remember ever being like a year later going, man, they really did have the games, because it doesn't happen. And it's just, I can't think of a good example of a year where I really feel like, man, they nailed it. That is anywhere within the past 6
years. Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And I mean, it's even more dire, I think, this year than previous years when we get into this conference next month. I mean, is that what they're going to do? Is he going to come out once again? We're going to talk about all these games that are coming out, but we're going to see the same stuff. I mean, more Fable. That's not going to come out this year.
No.
That Compulsion Studios game, I can't think of it. Was South of Midnight? That ain't going to come out this year.
I remember that one, yeah.
Like, stuff like that, we're not going to see come out this year. The only thing that is a known game this year that would be a big deal would be Indiana Jones.
Right. But even then, like for reasons like that game already has backlash on it.
And Avowed, I should say.
And Avowed should be, but
I hope so.
Should be like October.
The rumor is October. Yeah, the rumor is October, which
that doesn't mean anything anymore. Like I don't know what to believe. Well, I do know, but everything they say, I just go, yeah, okay, man. Like I'm kind of tired of it. But I'm not shitting in them because I think Sony is better at it, because they're not. Because look at
they're bad at it for different reasons.
Look at this year for first party games for Sony and tell me you give a damn. They don't exist.
There is nothing.
There's nothing. Although we might get a Lego Horizon game.
So weird.
Cool, man. I'll play it, but that's not.
Would that be a Sony exclusive game because it's Horizon?
It would have to be.
Okay.
Have to be. They made the Lego set. I remember it's funny because like when this first got teased this week, everybody thought it was just more Lego sets because they had made the one from before, but now it really seems like it's a game. Which I mean, cool, man. I'll play it, but don't try to tell me that's a first party exclusive AAA title. It's a Lego game.
I mean, I will say there are cool things that are rumored for this Xbox conference. A new Doom finally. You know, that's something I've been waiting for a while.
So obvious, like they would be doing that. And then there's
another big one for me, which I put in here, State of Decay 3 finally, which has been underground for so long. They keep putting updates out for 2, but like I would really like the next State of Decay.
Well, and now there's stuff going around where obviously like they're all hands on deck for Fallout. They're all hands on deck for,
and I think that's a lot of why you saw some of those other Bethesda shutdowns is they're transitioning some of those. Again, not everybody in those. A lot of people were laid off. Not everybody, but I think they're transitioning that studio because of how big of a hit that TV show is. Mm-hmm. Look at how fast they're to greenlight another Fallout game.
Right. Well, that's got to be next in the pipipeline. There's a chance
you're going to see that probably before.
Yes. Or at the very least, this rumored Fallout 3 like remaster.
I think if that exists, which it really does seem like that's real, that's at the show this year.
That's the perfect time to announce it.
I think you see the new Gears. I think if it exists, this is the one and only time I'll say, if it exists, this is the show you see a collection.
I don't even know anymore.
And if that collection exists now, because that was the next thing I'll put in here is, the leadership above Phil Spencer doesn't want any red line, apparently.
Right.
In terms of what games come to other platforms. They internally are referring to that as Project Latitude.
So
I could see, hey, here's a Gears collection. Oh, it's also coming out on PlayStation.
For sure. Why not?
For the first time. Played Marcus Phoenix's first 3 games.
Why not? Sea of Thieves is incredibly popular on PlayStation. They already proven to themselves we really should just be doing this.
I mean, we knew before the floodgates opened for those games that they were going to be successful.
Right.
But the minute that those higher up execs saw the fact that 7 games that are Microsoft published games were in the top 10 selling games on the PlayStation Digital Store, they're not going to stop.
Then why aren't they all?
Then it became, why can't we just dominate that entire list?
Why can't we do Starfield? What if Master Chief Collection gets ported to PS5?
I would say until this most recent thing, I would have told you no. Now, I could see it.
I could see it easily. Because that game has been out for so long, refined for so long, like reworked to the point
doesn't need any more patches.
It's finally done.
Yeah.
Just port it. Just have somebody put it out there.
If they do that, please make sure it's, crossplay for multiplayer.
I think, the beauty of that is if it's Microsoft putting it on there, I think they're going to be
on their servers.
You don't have a choice. This is cross. Even Sony hates crossplay. They buckle on a couple things here and there, like Minecraft and whatever, because Microsoft tells them.
I think that would be part of it.
I think that's part of the deal. I think part of the deal is it has.
Sea of Thieves, obviously,
right?
It does have exclusive servers for PlayStation, but there's no way they were going to put that game out on PlayStation. Go, well, you're locked off from these other platforms.
The entire existing player base,
which is what would we say, 30 million or something absurd? So
I do think that Master Chief Collection, totally in the.
I would welcome that.
I would too.
Give me a bigger community of people playing the multiplayer.
Yeah.
You know what? You know
Play
what's
some
crazy?
more
That would
multiplayer.
sell like crazy because there are plenty of people who were Xbox people
that moved
have
over.
a PS5 now.
Mm-hmm.
And if you told them
You can play Halo.
Halo on here, 4 Halo games on here, or is ODST in there too? 5 Halo games.
It's everything. Reach.
Yeah. Oh, 6.
Mhm.
Like 6 Halo games in here.
It's to the point where it should just be called the Halo Collection now, because that's what it is.
Right. So I think that would sell like crazy. You want to talk about?
I would buy it again.
You want to talk about pre-order numbers on a PlayStation thing?
Yeah.
Through the roof.
Through the roof. I would buy it again just because I would want to get trophies, because it's a weird thing. I'm getting PS5 trophies in Halo.
Yeah.
So
crazy.
That's so weird.
But
so
yeah, like I'm all for like the red line going away. Like,
but then it begs the question. So then, what is the point of them having their own box?
Pride, I guess.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Because like I look at it as someone who's been in that ecosystem for 20 years. This fall, I think, close to it. And it's like, okay, well, what do I do in the next, like, what is the reason? Like the one email we got, what would the reason be today to tell somebody, hey, you should go out and buy an Xbox, other than, Game Pass?
If Halo, Gears, and Starfield all end up on PlayStation in the next year, there isn't one.
There isn't one.
No. And I also think that this tells me that Indiana Jones might be first on Xbox, but it's not going to be very long.
I think that window is 3 to 6. I still think it's 3 to 6 months.
I think I had originally
more
thought
closer to
months.
the 3 month.
I had originally thought like 6 months, but now I think it's less. And I still think that maybe there's a 10% chance. It's on
day one. Day one.
It's possible. You can't tell me they haven't been kicking. They haven't had discussions about that already.
They have to
all the time. But do I ever see them going like full Sega and not making a console anymore? I don't know.
It's a different time, because again, you have people that are in that ecosystem for digital purchases. That wasn't a thing with the Dreamcast. Right. And that's, I think, a lot of people, even though they bring that up, and I mean, you have the idiots that want to see it happen for some reason, But
I don't think it's good if it goes away.
I don't think it's good if it goes away, but the thing is, that makes it a much more difficult thing, because again, all those, Sega went away. The Dreamcast was their last system, but all their games were physical things that you owned.
Right.
Hey, I can go into my living room, hook up a Dreamcast, and play those games. Whereas if Microsoft tomorrow was like, hey, we're out, Xbox is over, get it everywhere, whatever. What happens to those people that have 20 years of digital purchases and games and stuff? Are they just going to be locked in a couple of years?
The other thing you have to consider too is an Xbox is a far more media friendly device than a PlayStation is. Now, PlayStation 100%. PlayStation has all of these functionalities, and I can access YouTube and all that shit on there. But for some reason, the Xbox just feels more like a media device, and I think the reason is Windows, but it's it's just if I'm gonna watch Netflix or something, I typically just use my Xbox.
How weird is it that Sony are the people that own the Blu-ray and 4K Blu-ray proper, like the format,
right?
But for me, that media plays better on an Xbox. Wow. And remember, the PS4 didn't play 4K. Well, the Xbox One X did.
And think about that. Think about this too. It's like Best Buy doesn't carry physical movies anymore.
No.
So what does Blu-ray even mean anymore?
Yeah, what is it? At this point, it doesn't matter. Right. So,
but yeah, it is interesting that the Xbox always had a better one.
It is.
I don't ever see them necessarily going away, because I feel like they could remember, because the Xbox One was their attempt to double down at, we are the one entertainment system you need in your house.
They tried to go in an entertainment direction that I think now, a decade later, would have worked a lot better.
Makes more sense now.
But at the time, we were not ready for that.
No, because everything wasn't streaming yet.
No. And then they were too focused on the near but far future that system.
But on the other side is, I think at most you get one more.
I think you get one more system. They're already talking about it, so they clearly have developed something.
Like,
and
we know that this next one exists. Like they've already, it's already been talked about. But I could see a world where that's the last one, especially if it doesn't. If it doesn't pick up, they don't fix mistakes. It's dead. Whereas I feel like PlayStation, all they have to do is just keep the naming convention. The next one, just keep calling them 6, 7, and then when you get to 10, you can call it PSX for real and not refer to that weird one-off PlayStation X.
I agree.
They have to keep as long as they just market it as a game system, that's what they need. And then Nintendo just hangs out in the background and does whatever the fuck they want, and it doesn't matter. I always thought
pretty much
there was, it's funny because for the longest time, I always thought Nintendo was closer to becoming Sega than Microsoft would be, just because Microsoft is Windows. It is Microsoft.
It's weird. Yeah, like it is a weird thing. And I always like, because they keep putting in the articles, like it's funny, like Microsoft, the $3 trillion company,
right?
Because they are a $3 trillion company. But it is weird to me.
They say that
if you would have told me
companies are good.
Like if you would have told me this,
Amazon's great. Come on.
If you would have told me 20 years ago that we were looking at a potential future where of these 3 companies, this was the one that might be going away or getting out or going third party, I would not have believed you.
I think in the beginning of during the Xbox, PS2, GameCube days, I think you could have made an argument that maybe Microsoft wasn't going to hang around. However, the GameCube, by the end of that generation, even though the GameCube is revered now and we all love it,
it was not.
It was not at the time, especially coming as someone who worked in a video game store while the 3 of those were there. Towards the end, PS2 was always number 1 by far, just because Xbox really started to pick up towards the end because you started to get like stuff that actually used it, like Splinter Cell. Stuff like that, you know what I mean? Whereas the GameCube, it just really kind of tapered off at the end, and it was kind of like, man, if this next system doesn't hit, they're in trouble.
Well, the other thing too,
quote unquote, lucky that the Wii was the hottest selling thing.
The other thing too that I think helped the Xbox originally get to that number 2 spot before the 360 was Xbox Live. Because PS2, I mean, you could play some games online like Final Fantasy 11.
Made it a big deal. Like
Xbox made it a big deal, and it was
an event. Like the servers are going to turn on. Buy your kit; it comes with a headset.
And it was easy to get into something and talk to people. Yeah, it just worked if you use the service. 360, I think it becomes more clear now. 360, they captured lightning in a bottle.
They perfected it, right?
For that generation, they really did.
It helped that they went up against a Nintendo system that was fun to play for families, but was not a game system.
No,
and it also helped that the PS3 for 3 years was
a shit show,
a disaster.
It was
That's the only way to describe
until
it.
They redesigned it.
As someone who worked there and was selling these 3 systems, PlayStation was a distant third. And by distant third, I mean it wasn't even people barely considered it when they would come in.
No, but
360s were gone immediately. Wii's you could never have.
No,
but PlayStation's, man, they sat there forever. And
well, they had that. How long do you remember? Because I don't remember this. How long was it out before they dropped the price of the PS3?
Long
from
time.
The 600.
Well, because
it was a
remember
while.
the original thing that they did was stupid, where there was 20s and 60s, and then they said fuck those, and they made 40s and 80s. But then remember, one of the 80s was backwards, but it wasn't actually backwards; it was emulating backwards. And then they dumped that one. So they just constantly kept changing the model.
Yeah. Until they got to that slim model, which is kind of where they perfected it.
It's either you use memory cards or you get one with a 20 gig hard drive. And then eventually you got a 60 gig hard drive. And
then a 120.
But remember, the thing about that was, you wanted a hard drive? You just take it off the top and you put it on there. And it's done.
Well, that was a cool thing back in the day. Like if you wanted to go to your friend's house and play Xbox, but you have all your saves, just slap the hard drive on.
Yeah. Crazy.
It was just like having a bigger memory card.
Whereas PlayStation, it was like, well, you can change the hard drive. We really don't want you to.
You can do it, yeah, but we don't want you to do that.
And it doesn't. And if, warning, if you put something else in some other system, it's got to be formatted.
And it did really feel like when that PS3 Slim model came out, it was almost like a relaunch of that system.
It was like a new system because the system just kind of worked. That one, it was easy to put a hard drive in, and it was like,
because I never had the fat system. I jumped on when the slim model came out.
I bought a 60 just because
I wanted a Blu-ray player.
I bought it a 60 for a Blu-ray player and the fact that it could play PS2 games.
Because I was a 360 person, we hedged our bets on HD DVD.
I waited to kind of see. I had a feeling that HD DVD was not going to win.
No, we bought a player, and then there was like some sort of deal where you could get a bunch of those HD DVDs for like a discount.
Yeah,
if you bought the player, so we had like 10 of those movies. Like they weren't bad. So, but it just obviously that format war was like a year, if that.
Yeah, even. It was not even close. Didn't it come down to like basically Blu-ray was the one that got Disney. And it got.
I think it was Disney, and there was some other like really big movie.
Sony stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff like that where it was just like, this is gonna win, and it really shouldn't bother. But like just Xbox. This presentation after all this presentation that's coming up has to be real fucking good. It's got to put hard dates on things. And then they have to hit these hard dates. They have to say, avowed, October 12th, 2024. Yeah.
Indiana Jones, December
6th, 2024. Fable, March 2025. They have to start locking stuff down, making sure it hits that day, and making sure it fucking works. Imagine a world where Indiana Jones comes out, and it's 30 frames, and we got to patch it. And it
wouldn't make sense because the trailer was 60 frames, but
what does that fucking mean? That was a trailer.
I know.
You can edit that in post to make it 60 frames because it doesn't have to be run in real time.
True, but I would be surprised still. But I can imagine a world where they fuck that up and it comes out at 30, but then in 3 months when it comes to PS5, suddenly it's at 60.
Oh God, can you imagine that?
So, just another catastrophe.
I don't think necessarily it will, just because it is machine games and.
No, they optimized their engine really well.
They've never had a problem. So they're in the shitter, man. Like it's
really bad.
It's as low as it's been since the Xbox One reveal.
It's for me. It's like I said in the last week or two. It's been me looking and going, well, I guess I'm just going to start buying everything for PS5 right now.
It's the safer bet.
It's the safer bet. Yeah.
And if stuff starts coming out on both, it's really the correct choice, right?
It is right now. As I said, Crow Country, I was like, well, I looked at all three because I was like, I could get it on Steam, I could get it here, and then I was like, well, realistically, if I want to play this on a console, I guess it's PS5,
right?
So,
well, and I've been talking about waiting for Indiana Jones for years, and that might have been what it got for me to buy a system.
Yeah,
but now
I would say
I'm gonna probably wait a little bit and see what happens.
Just see. The last part of this I'll put in there is that today, and this was an announcement today, that Activision has opened a new AAA studio called Elsewhere, which is weird. I mean, I think this obviously was something that was planned way before these other studio shutdowns, but it's just, again, Microsoft not really good with their timing.
That's a great name for a Call of Duty support studio in 4 years.
It is. Elsewhere. Where are you based?
We've decided to roll Elsewhere into the Call of Duty studio family.
Yeah, I could see that email already.